It's Chris Doritas with Nick Cave. Morning Becomes Eclectic on KCRW. I wanted to start by thanking you for being so good to us at KCRW. I mean,
I've done a few, have I?
Yeah. You've done I think 5 sessions, maybe more.
Do you still do those sessions?
Yeah, of course. Of course we do, yeah.
I have to do another one.
Yes, please. I mean, you've released a lot of those songs.
Yeah. We put out a record of one of those events, right?
You did. And you also, one of your sessions from 92, you gave us God's Hotel, which I don't think had been, up until that point, released anywhere else.
My gift to you.
The new album, Wild God, is so beautiful. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody that's paying attention to your work can see how prolific you are. Stage work, songwriting, books, fiction books, children's books, audio books, documentary films, narrative films, ceramics, artwork, exhibitions. And this is all in the last 5 years you've done this.
An embarrassment of riches.
Yeah.
With the emphasis on embarrassment. There seems way too much stuff to me, but I tend to work pretty hard at stuff. But there are things that are truly important and things that are sort of secondary dalliances, I would say. And I think the Red Hand files in particular are kind of central part of what I am and what I do.
Could you put words around that motivating force behind all the creativity, that propulsion of creativity?
Well, I don't. I just do stuff, for one thing. I don't spend a lot of time, or I spend no time speculating on whether the idea itself is any good, right? So I don't. I know other artist friends that stop and start and they lose confidence in the idea. I don't have that problem. Even if an idea isn't particularly good, or it's a small idea, or it may not be particularly, or appear particularly important, if you put your whole self into it, it becomes something. It can't help but do that. And so I do, much to my team's horror, say yes to a lot of stuff. Someone asks me to do something, I say yes and give it a go, so I'm not really sure how to answer that question, except that there always just seems to be another thing to do.
Well, it has to come with a lot of learning to trust your instincts too, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's entirely instinctual. And I quite enjoy doing things that I don't really have any authority to be doing. If someone asked me back in the day, would you write a film script? I go, yeah. and write it without any real understanding of how you write a film script or what a film script's supposed to do. Or I wrote a film script for a film called The Proposition. That was the first one I wrote. And the original film script's absolutely hilarious because I have no understanding of the directions that should be good. It's got 2 paragraphs that talk about a fly walking up, the lead actor's face and all of this sort of stuff. Actually, Russell Crowe read that script and he said, "You don't need to say what a fly does." I'm like, oh, okay. We don't care about the fly. So I tend to give most things a shot, and here we are,
Well, I mean, it takes a lot of confidence, I guess, to get to that point where you can just sort of let it flow.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, you mentioned the Red Hand Files. More recently, you've been nurturing this relationship with the audience, having this ongoing conversation with your audience. I mean, I guess it's always been that way, but it's shifted.
Yeah,
right?
No, it certainly has. It's it's become this very beautiful thing. It's something that I started. I actually don't know how long ago it was. Maybe 6 years or something like that. 7 years, which was really in a response because my son died, Arthur, and because I'm sort of a public figure, I received a lot of people writing to me. They would write to Nick Cave of Brighton, in the town that I lived in, and I would just receive these letters. And they weren't letters of commiseration. They were more people writing in and saying, look, this happened to me too, you know, and I found that these letters were requiring something of me. And so I sort of thought that I'd do some kind of podcast or something like that where I could talk to people about things, but I realized that I didn't feel comfortable doing that because I wanted to be careful about the information that I was giving out. And so I basically started up the Red Hand Files, which is something where you could write in and ask me something and I'd answer it. And very quickly, because of what had happened to me, many of these questions were about people who'd lost someone. And I found over the years that I grew to be able to be quite articulate in describing and sort of the nuances of grief. I found a language for it in time. And now, you know, this was a small idea. It wasn't a big idea. It was a small idea that I committed myself to. It's grown up into something that really is the central pillar of not just my creative life, but my life in general, that my life sort of revolves around the Red Hand Files and the kind of mutual concern that we have for each other as human beings.
I can't really think of another artist who's done something like this.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, it requires something, the Red Hand Files. It's not easy to do, and there's hundreds of questions now, and I think I spend 3 days at least of the week dealing with the Red Hand Files. That is, reading the questions. And then finding a question that's worth answering and replying in a considered way. And this, I've said this before, but this is not something that comes naturally to me. I'm not like an empath. You know, I don't read all these questions and my heart is broken every time I read a sad letter. I feel kind of weirdly removed from this river of sorrow that flows, this beautiful river of sorrow that flows through these letters. And I feel in that respect equipped to be able to answer these letters in a thoughtful way. But it requires me to sort of journey to the better end of my nature in order to be able to answer these questions. And I think through the years of doing it, I sort of perhaps live a little bit more down the sort of good end of the street rather than the sort of cynical end.
Well, the letters that come through Red Hand Files it's incredible what you're getting from people, you know?
Yeah.
People struggling with self-loathing and, you know, dealing with rage and loss and all that. But you seem to gently push them toward renewal or redemption in some way.
That's right. I think that if I'm trying to say anything, it really is that against our better judgment, we are of value as human beings, and that this world is of value, regardless of what we are told, constantly told, that human beings are some sort of problem. I don't see the world in that way, and I think that is because I've been through a series, but of devastations that have allowed me to see the precarious nature of ourselves as human beings.
The topics are pretty heady, but sometimes there's hilarity.
Yeah, they're funny.
Yeah, I laughed out loud a lot reading through them. But as you say on the album, at some point you need some joy.
Yeah,
I'm Chris Doritas. It's KCRW, Morning Becomes Eclectic with Nick Cave. I have a confession to make to you about your music in my life. I've always been a fan. I've always deeply admired your work. But looking back now, I realize that I kind of experienced the songs like a proscenium, like they were in 2D for me. Mm-hmm. And then when you put out Ghosteen, I was suddenly inside the songs. Mm-hmm. And I felt myself being reflected back to me. You know, I felt like it was suddenly all in 3D. Yeah.
Because of your own...
Yeah. Because we have that in common, that we've lost a kid.
Okay.
Yeah. My daughter was 14, Arthur was 15, both on the cusp of adulthood.
Yeah.
Right? And I just, you know, for no better way to say it, I felt like we were part of the same club.
Yeah.
In a way, you know?
Yeah, it's a terrible thing, and I've always been happy that those records reach out to people like you. In my experience, as deeply sad as it is, and how if there could be some sort of cosmic deal that could be made, that it could be some other way, or that we could go back to before the incident and sort of change the history of our lives, we would. But these cosmic deals can't be made. And I have found through my own experience that through the grief that I've gone through, the capacity to feel extraordinary joy and beauty, feel the world to be a beautiful place in a way that I didn't understand before that. The world sort of came into focus or something. It became a thing of intense beauty at times. Mm. And I think that that's because before a trauma, we're not fully human. It's a weird thing to say, but I think it's the sort of devastations that happen in our lives that complete us as human beings and allow us the capacity to see the world for what it is and not what we're told it is.
I can think of two milestones in my life where I felt my heart opening up in a different way. One was when my first child was born.
Yeah.
And you suddenly realize how selfish you've been. You've been selfish all this time. And then in losing a child, and, you know, there's that period where you don't even think you can get off the ground or take another step or live another minute. But then when you re-enter the world and you're out in traffic and you're behind somebody at a traffic light and the light turns green in front of you and the guy in front of you doesn't go, I react to it differently now, because you don't know if he just got a phone call. You don't know if maybe he just came from the hospital. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, I think we see ourselves reflected in each other in a way that, I mean, I always, you know, I was a musician and, you know, but I always felt slightly separate from things and separate from the world. And maybe I even sort of cultivated that position, you know, as a young person. You know, I was like an outsider. I was an outsider. And it took a trauma, or it took the death of my child to see that that's not true, and that I was actually deeply embedded in the human story, and I was an insider after all. And it's quite something. It's quite something to be able to see yourself reflected in other people, that there's a sort of common brokenness to people that it's a beautiful thing.
Well, with Ghosteen, you created this sort of oral afterlife.
Yeah.
In honor of Arthur. Is that a fair way to put it? Yeah,
that's a very beautiful way of putting it. I haven't heard it put such, but that's true. It's actually what was on some sort of subconscious level the intention of that record, was to try and sounds sort of strange to say so, but to try and improve the condition of the one that we'd lost. I'm not even quite sure what I mean by that, but I felt that I wanted to make wherever he may be, if he may be anywhere, that sort of place better for him in some way. You know, when I was making that record, I was kind of mad, you know, with grief about things. And I think that record's a sort of product of that kind of weird, you know, madness. And it's I don't know, I can listen to that record and think it's extremely beautiful, and it makes me feel that I did something more for my son than just stick him in the ground and move on, you know, get over it and move on. It lives, that record, and for me, it's sort of him and others live inside it.
There's a song on the B-Sides and Rarities Part 2 release from 2019, Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
It almost feels like a prelude to Ghosteen. Am I misreading that?
It's kind of awesome thing. You know, it's a wonderful. I love that very much. I think we actually used to play that song as a sort of intro music in the end to maybe even to the sort of Nick and Warren, you know, the events I did with Warren or somewhere like that. No, I think it was to the In Conversation events that I did. I'd play that song. It's quite something. I can't really remember what it's about, to be honest, but I just remember that it was a style of writing that I was working out that was quite different and quite new.
When was it? Do you remember when it was written? Was it after Skeleton Tree?
I don't remember. I think it was written around the time of Jubilee Street, but it was just a long poem, you know. So it wasn't a song as such, and I think I just ended up just sort of speaking it over a bit of ambient music, and it's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I have to thank you for One More Time with Feeling. That was the documentary that was shot 6 or 7 months after you lost Arthur.
That's right, yeah.
I saw myself staring back at me in that film, you know, and seeing you and your family and Susie and Earl in that documentary was just heartbreaking. There's a moment when you're telling Earl to just sort of ignore the camera and you'll get used to it. I don't know if you remember that moment in the documentary, but the way that Earl looks at you is just so beautiful. Just the way he gazes at you with his...
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Look, I've only watched that film very quickly once.
Yeah. Not when you want to go back to...
And Andrew Dominic was like, look, from the beginning, I'm like, look, I'll do whatever you say as long as I can have final edit on this and chop out anything I don't like. I didn't quite realise what it was like to deal with Andrew Dominic, who is a dear friend but deeply immovable when it comes to these matters. And I saw it and I just said, look, lose the end, lose the interviews. There was just, I just hated the whole thing. And but I did love the interviews with Susie. I just thought she was really this extraordinary force. And Susie watched it with me and she felt exactly the opposite. She thought, get rid of me, but you're beautiful in it. And in the end, we didn't know what to do. Andrew fought for tooth and nail to keep all of it in. And in the end, I rang up Warren Ellis, my dear friend and the member of the Bad Seeds, And he said, look, this film is important. It's beautiful. Step away from it. You're not the one to be making decisions about this film. Just let it go. And so I did. I just sort of let it go. And I haven't seen it since. But, you know, if I had have had my way, it would have been, you know, I wouldn't have let it go. But, you know, and now I hear, like, from people, from yourself, that it's an important film. So
yeah, I mean, to go back to Susie for a second, she shows up in the third act. She's radiant in that movie.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I'm grateful that Warren talked you out of it.
Yeah,
because
I'm grateful to him for a lot of things, to be honest. He's a clever man.
Yeah, I think that film and the book you did with Sean O'Hagan, Faith, Hope, and Carnage, are such gifts to people that have gone through, you know, really difficult times. I've sent them to friends of mine who've lost people, you know.
It's a beautiful book.
It really is, and I would suggest that anyone who's gone through some heavy loss should check out that book and check out that movie, One More Time with Feeling. There's a revelation at the end of that movie, too, in the end credits, a song that the twins sing.
Oh, yeah. That's right, yeah.
Yeah, how did that song come about?
I was writing that song for Marianne Faithfull. Marianne sent me those lyrics, Deep Water. And I put some chords to those lyrics, and my kids were around, and I said, look, why don't you sing this song with me? And they're musical, they're little guys, and Arthur had a very, very beautiful voice. So I just recorded us singing it, and Andrew collected everything he could find about everything, as he does, and put that on the end of the film. But, you know, once again, that was also something that I wanted him to get rid of. It all just felt too, you know. But anyway, so I'm luckily.
Felt too what?
I was forever worried that the film would feel like some kind of grief porn or something like that, you know. But that we were sort of wallowing or something, and that really, it's funny. You know, I was in a pretty bad state when we were making that film, and Susie was just stunned by life, you know, stunned, completely just walking around like a zombie, and Andrew was just running around filming everything, and I rang Susie and I'm like, where are you, darling? And she says, I'm down on the beach. Andrew's filming me walking along the beach. And I'm like, what? He's filming you like walking sadly along the beach, you know. Get back to the house now. and she came back to the house. And I'm like, you know, Andrew, what are you doing? You know, this is grotesque. And then I saw this piece of footage of her walking across by the sea. It was so beautiful. I took that piece of footage in the end and put it up on a massive screen with the Bad Seeds when we played Girl in Amber, and it was really quite beautiful. So I guess what I'm saying is that I had no idea of anything in those at that time, of what was of value and what was. I was just sort of instinctively trying to protect everyone. Anyway, the film came out and it was a lovely thing.
Yeah, and you don't know right off that it's the kids. You're just hearing this song. It sounds like a demo.
Yeah.
Right? And did you say the lyrics were written by Marianne Faithfull?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just some random song.
Huh. And so when the song starts, I was like, wait, is that the boys? You know? And I had to wait for the very end credit to stream by, and it says that it's Arthur, and it's Earl, and it's you.
Yeah.
You know? And it's Arthur on the lead vocal.
That's right, yeah.
Right? And then they sing together. And
yeah.
Well, it's called Deep Water.
Deep Water.
I want to play the song. If that's
really?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's just. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
It's just beautiful.
I'm walking through deep water. It's all that I can do. chains. The water swells around me, and the water makes it cold. I'm walking through deep water, trying to get to you. Who will calm my tears? Who will dry my tears away? Who will calm my fears? Who will dry my tears away? I'm walking through deep water, nearer to the sea. I'm asking the deep water, don't take my love from me. While desperate little ladies with 100 just like me, they hold their breath and hesitate and dance beneath the sea. I'm walking through deep water, trying to get to you.
It's called Deep Water. It's from One More Time with Feeling, the film by Andrew Dominic, around Nick Cave and the loss of your son Arthur. Yeah, Nick is with us. I'm Chris Doritas. It's KCRW. Morning Becomes Eclectic. How is Earl doing?
Earl is brilliant. He's an actor, and he's doing really well. He's really good at it. He loves it. Yeah, he's a beautiful, sensitive, caring, strange young man.
I mean, the boys are beautiful. Do you think Arthur would have pursued music?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. He had a really beautiful voice. He lovely sort of tone to his voice. I don't know.
Yeah.
He was a great drummer, actually. He was a really good drummer, yeah. He sort of gave it up, but he was straight away, he could do stuff, you know. He was really good.
Well, back to the Red Hand Files, there's a letter that asks about the new album, but in that letter you refrained from talking too much about the album because it wasn't out yet. But this conversation is airing when the album, after the album comes out. So I'm wondering now if you can tell us the name of the narrator in Long Dark Night. I thought it was you.
The name of the... Have I sort of alluded to that in the Red Hand Files?
Yeah, you did.
There's a sort of secret, is there?
Yeah, you said that there was some...
Okay, so for me, the narrator of Long Dark Night is B from Jubilee Street, the woman.
Ah, okay.
So, you know, I mean, it's about a lot of things, that song, but initially the impulse was that the sort of, I guess, the wild God character of the title song is sort of searching for meaning and is inside his memory, and he remembers the girl from Jubilee Street, which is an old Bad Seed song about a girl from Jubilee Street called B, a prostitute, I guess she is in that song, and he visits her in his memory in the future, in the present day, and finds that she's dead. She died in a bedsit in 1983, it says. And so for me, I guess, Long Dark Night, although it's actually ends up being about other things, but the initial impulse was the narrative from that song is B, who is dead but doesn't really know it, and is visited by this man who sits on the iron rail of her bed, combing his long hair, and there's a sort of conversion scene in the final verse where he reaches down and strikes her neck with his long white hair, long trailing hair. It's quite a beautiful thing, if I may say so.
I'm Chris Doritas with Nick Cave. You've always occupied, for me, a singular lane, your own lane in music throughout your career. You've always been sort of, this...
My own swimming pool.
Your own swimming pool, yeah. There's only one instance that I can think of where maybe that was not the case for me, and that was in the movie Shrek 2. I was the music supervisor on Shrek 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, did you do that?
Huh?
Did you get me that gig?
Well, we've never talked about this, right? So, and I've never heard you really talk about this either, but you know where I'm going with this? If you remember in the movie, did you see the movie?
Sort of.
Okay, well, King goes to this...
With one eye. I'm sorry.
Well, he goes to this to this bar. It's the Poisoned Apple, and the barkeep is voiced by Larry King. And,
oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And the barkeep's in drag. Anyway, he goes to the Poisoned Apple to put a hit out on Shrek, and he's looking for Puss in Boots, Antonio Banderas. And in the bar, Captain Hook is playing the piano.
Yeah.
And when we first go into the bar, it's a Tom Waits song, A Little Drop of Poison.
Right.
And then when he's leaving the bar, it's People Ain't No Good.
Yeah, that's right. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that. So you did that?
Well, I mean, I just thought it was funny because nobody has ever said, well, wait, that's a different voice. Well, how does Captain Hook have two voices?
I see.
Right? But has nobody ever asked you about that?
No one's ever asked me, but I do remember this sort of imitation of Captain Hook's piano playing, which pretty much summed up my abilities on the piano, actually, where he's just playing with his hook, sort of one note. So I thought that was very funny because it seemed to me some sort of reference to my rather rudimentary piano playing, but it was lovely that it's there.
It's kind of cool.
What a film.
Yeah. I mean, well, Shrek and Shrek 2. Look, we had Dylan in there, Leonard Cohen, you, Bowie.
Yeah.
Like, we had cool music in these movies, right?
Very good.
So you had little kids walking around singing a Leonard Cohen song, singing a Nick Cave song.
Yeah.
Because they saw it in that movie. I thought that was really...
No, it's very good. We're very happy with that. And yeah, very happy.
Yeah. Speaking of children's things, you've got a series now. I can call it a series, I suppose. The Little Thing.
Oh, those books. Yeah, I've got another one actually written.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So there's two out so far. There's The Little Thing and The Little Thing... Oh, The Little Thing is Sad. Yeah.
Oh, is it The Little Thing is Sad?
Yeah, so now there's a third one.
Yeah, I think it's The Little Thing is Pissed. And he's just angry at everything, and he's bringing everyone's happy, and they keep coming along. He keeps telling them to go away because I'm pissed, and so everyone becomes unhappy. So it's just this little horrible thing that sort of. Yeah. Anyway, it was sort of such a sort of spectacular financial failure as an enterprise that I don't think we can find anyone to sort of make the third one. But
so the third one's just waiting to find a release?
Well, I've drawn it, I've written it. It's mocked up. We just have to get our act together to actually put it into production.
I want to be in the meeting for those pitches.
All right.
It's called The Little Thing is Pissed.
It's for very small children.
I love it. Okay, so you've got this European tour that starts September 24th in Germany, and I guess a U.S. tour is in the works.
Yeah, next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know when, but it's certainly being organised.
Have you thought about like the makeup of the band on the tour? What is that something that you've sorted?
Yeah, well, it looks like Marty, the bass player, is not going to be able to come on the tour. He's ill, and so Colin Greenwood will be coming out as bass player.
Oh, wow.
Who I've been
Colin
working
from Radiohead.
From Radiohead.
Yeah.
But basically, the lineup will be the same beyond that as the festival tour that we'd already done. Basically the Bad Seeds. There'll be a bunch of singers.
Nice.
And we've got a lot of ideas for stuff. You have to wait and see.
Yeah. We're going to close with a couple things. Well, the closing tracks from the album, which I think I love Oh Wow.
Oh, good. You're going to play that?
Oh wow, how wonderful she is.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful song. I think it really says a lot. It says a lot about Anita Lane, who it's about, who died a couple of years ago. The sort of whole record seems to be sort of filled with spirits, but they're animated and their condition is quite okay. So it's not a grieving thing. And I hadn't really noticed that, I guess, but it's a lovely way to put it. And this is a typical example of that. You even have Anita Lane's voice, a recording of her voice at the very end.
Was that on the phone?
Yeah, that I took from a phone call from her a couple of years before she died. I just taped it, don't know why. And it's just there at the end, and she's talking about the way things used to be, and by that stage she was essentially a recluse, but continued to be a dear friend and much loved by everyone, and everyone was deeply shocked and saddened when she died. But that song is joyful. It's joyful because that's what Anita was. She was this gorgeous, extremely beautiful, bright, flaming sort of force that we dark, drug-addicted men kind of circled around back in the day. And I think that song really, this song really sort of sums up the sort of deeply innocent nature that she sort of presented to the world.
So beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much too.
Yeah, very, very much appreciate.
Yeah, my pleasure. Absolutely.
Nick Cave. The new album is called Wild God. It's Morning Becomes Eclectic on KCRW. I'm Chris Terides. Thanks,
All right,
Nick.
Chris.
Thank you.